Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth part of the video tutorial series, Learning Pandas from Zero. My name is Ch.4, and in this tutorial I will be your guide in Pandas. Today we will explore together how to modify the elements in a data frame. Let us recapitulate what we have learned in our last tutorial. We have covered how to access the elements in a data frame. We've revealed that the notation in NumPy is applicable to Pandas, but with minor differences. There are three ways to call the elements in an array, including the direct notation, list notation, and colon notation. These notation can be used in a Pandas data frame. But we do not use the array index directly as what we can do for a NumPy array. We have three ways to call the elements in a data frame: the iLoc, loc methods, and index notation. The iLoc method means that we call the elements by their number indexes. Loc means that we can call the elements by the entry names, that is, column headers and row indexes. Finally, we can use the index or attribute to call the entire data of a column. Now the next question will be, as we know how to address the elements properly, how do we change the data frame? First, we examine how to add new entries, that is, rows and columns, to a data frame. It can be done by three ways. First, we can assign it directly, or we can use the method of the data frame, append. Lastly, we will introduce how to use the Pandas method, concat, to merge two data frames together. First, we talk about how to attach a new row or column. To do so, we need to use the loc method or to call by index. If you are not familiar with these methods, they are covered in our tutorial series Ch.4. Feel free to check them out. We use these methods as if we want to call some of the existing elements, but this time we assign these variables the data we want to add. In this case, a list which contains all the data in all columns. Notice that there is no flexibility here, that we need to input the data for all columns. We cannot omit entry of some columns. Also, we cannot use iLoc here. To illustrate this idea, let us reuse our old friend example, the data frame which we have been using in last chapter. When we call for the column pineapple, as we show here in this example, and assign it with a list of elements 2, 3, and 5. Then the final data frame will have 5 columns, as we have expected. The second method is the append method. We use this method if we want to add new rows or data frame to the existing one. To use this append method, we need to construct in advance another data frame, or a dictionary which contains data of columns in the data frame. Different from direct assignment, this method allows you to pass an incomplete set of columns as the input. To do so, we need to use the option ignore_index and set it to be true. Then, even when some data is missing in your appending data frame or dictionary, Pandas will not complain about it and raise an error. Let us look at this example. We will consider the same data frame so that we know what it originally looks like. If you have data available for all columns, then you can pass the full list as if you are making a new data frame. If you have forgot how to make a new data frame, please refer to Chapter 2 of this tutorial series for a quick brush up. Then we pass the dictionary to the append method, and notice that this method only creates a copy of the modified data frame. So we need to store it with the original data frame explicitly. If you only have data for partial set of columns, then you need to switch on the ignore index so that Pandas put NaN to the column where no data is available. The last method to add data to a data frame is the default Pandas method, concat. It allows you to attach both rows and columns to an existing data frame. To use this method, we need to construct a data frame to store the data. Then we use the concat method and pass the list which contains all the data frame we want to merge. As I mentioned, this method lets you add new rows and columns, so you need to set the access to be 0 or 1 to help Pandas identify the data. 0 means new rows and 1 means new columns. Let us look at an example. I guess at this point, without me to mention, we are using the same data frame for demonstration. We first construct a data frame and then set up the concat by passing a list with the two data frames, df and new_df. And we assign the result on the original data frame. The command is equivalent to the top one shown here. On the other hand, if we want to add new columns, besides the data for the data frame, we need to set up the index accordingly so that the concat method can match the rows accordingly. Otherwise, it will create new rows to store these data. Now it is time for you to practice. This time, let us assume that you have a friend which owns this data frame. We want to add some new columns to the data frame, but not so sure how to do. Your friend comes to you and asks for your help. Can you show your friend how to do it properly? The data your friend wants to add is shown in the slide. Feel free to pause the video and try it on your own Jupyter notebook and see if you manage to use all these new commands. Now let's discuss my way to do that. Because there are more than one ways to do so, it is perfectly okay that you find another way to achieve the same result. Since the table is not complete, we need to do it separately. First, we do the column pair, where all the entries are present. We can use the index notation and call for the pair column and assign it with the list. For the dragon fruit column, we need to make a data frame first to indicate which index corresponds to the corresponding dragon fruit value. Then we use concat to add the new data frame and store it in df3. Certainly, we can store it in df depending on our need. Notice that in the final result, the entry of Ch.4 dragon fruit is filled by default NaN. This completes the part of adding rows and columns to the data frame. The next thing we want to discuss is to replace some element or entire data in a row or column. If you followed the previous part closely, you might have already guessed we can simply assign by calling the elements by any notation. And that's true. Once you know which rows and column you want to replace, we can assign it with a list where all the new data is stored. Then Pandas will update the data frame for you. The final change we can do on a data frame is to remove the existing rows and columns. To do so, we use the data frame method drop and pass the row index or column header we want to remove as a string or in a list. And we specify in the access option whether your list is for rows or columns, as well as the in-place option. For example, if we pass labels equal kiwi and set access equals 1, then the final data frame will have only 3 columns: shop, apple, and orange. Notice that if you do not set access, Pandas by default assumes the labels are for the rows. We have introduced how to modify the values of elements in the data frame. But how about the headers and index? How do we replace them if we happen to give a wrong name for them in the first place? The answer is the rename method. In this method, you need to provide a dictionary to do the renaming. Namely, the dictionary contains the mapping from the old name, that is the key, to the new name, that is the value. This method can add on both row and column names, so you need to specify the access again. Let us reuse the same data frame for illustration. Originally, the data frame has columns shop, apple, orange, and kiwi. Then we use the rename method and provide a mapper that changes shop into shop code, and apple into pineapple. Then we can see the final result agrees with what we have wanted. Of course, notice that we have also set access equals 1 to make sure we are changing the columns, and in place equals true so that all the changes are kept within the same data frame. Now let's practice for the new method we have just learned. Your friend comes to you again. Please don't feel annoyed with your friend. This time your friend wants to do 3 things on the data frame but does not know how to do. Can you help your friend? Your friend wants to change the index shop2, replace the value for apple and kiwi for shop1, and remove the column orange. It sounds a lot, but no worry. We have already covered all the necessary methods in this tutorial. Again, feel free to pause the video if you need more time to work on your own solution. Let us take a look at the solution line by line. First, we use the rename method to replace shop2 by shopx. Notice that we use in place equals true to make sure the updated data frame overrides the original one. Then we use the load method to call the apple and kiwi columns of shop1 and assign them with the necessary values. Finally, we use the drop function to remove the orange column. Notice that we specify access equals 1 so that Pandas knows that we want to remove a column, not a row. Again, in place is used so that the data frame acts on its own instead of creating a copy. So that's the end of our 4th tutorial video. And once again, thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you again in the next tutorial. We will learn how to ask Pandas to describe the statistical and structure of a data frame. Again, practice makes perfect. I will encourage you to also read my open source ebook to do some of the related exercise to strengthen your skills. I hope you have enjoyed the tutorial today. See you.